By all accounts, you should not be here, neither should I, neither should anyone or anything at all. Physics tells us that at the moment of the Big Bang, matter and antimatter were created in almost perfect balance. But here's the paradox. When matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate each other into pure light. If they had existed in equal quantities, the newborn universe would have been nothing more than a sterile sea of radiation. No stars, no galaxies, no planets, no Beethoven, no Simone de Beauvoir, no laughter, no grief, no you. And yet, against this overwhelming logic, a tiny asymmetry tipped the scales. For every billion pairs of particles and antiparticles, there was one extra matter particle left unpaired, 1 in a billion. The fragile imbalance, seemingly insignificant, became everything. It became hydrogen, stars, chemistry, biology, consciousness, and finally the human struggle to make sense of its own improbable existence. This cosmic mystery is called the baryon asymmetry problem. Why is there more matter than antimatter? Why did imbalance triumph over perfection? I believe this mystery doesn't just belong to physics, it belongs to philosophy, psychology, and spirituality too. It mirrors what I call the multiverse of self-theory, a unified framework of perception, time, and becoming. Just as matter survives through asymmetry, the self survives through the asymmetry of perception. In 1967, Soviet physicist Andrei Sakharov outlined 3 requirements for matter to dominate over antimatter. Baryon number violation. The universe must allow processes that create or destroy matter in unusual ways. C and CP violation. The laws of physics must not treat matter and antimatter equally. There must be bias, departure from thermal equilibrium. The universe must pass through imbalances where reactions fall out of balance, freezing in asymmetry. These are not philosophical musings, they are the bedrock of cosmology, and yet, when seen through another lens, they describe not just the universe but also the human condition. Physicists have indeed observed CP violation in particle accelerators, tiny imbalances in how quarks and mesons behave. But these effects are far too small to explain the sheer dominance of matter in the cosmos. Other avenues, leptogenesis through neutrinos, physics beyond the standard model, or exotic ideas from string theory, remain open. But here's the bottom line. Existence, as we know it, depends on imperfection. Absolute balance would have been annihilation. Only asymmetry could give rise to being. If physics tells us imbalance created the cosmos, philosophy tells us imbalance creates the self. Perfect symmetry is sterile. If every perception were weighted equally, every memory valued the same, every choice leading to the same outcome, there would be no individuality. Consciousness would dissolve into a flat ocean of possibility, undifferentiated and meaningless. The self, like matter, arises from imbalance. Your particular biases, wounds, passions, and flaws tip the scales of perception. They collapse infinity into one specific narrative. You. Nietzsche once wrote that to live is to suffer and to survive is to find meaning in suffering. That meaning-making is an asymmetry. Simone de Beauvoir argued that freedom exists only in the tension between facticity, our given conditions, and transcendence, our ability to surpass them. That tension is an imbalance. Without these asymmetries, life would be neutralized into static nothingness. Perfection, as physics shows us, is indistinguishable from non-being. In MST, perception itself is a CP violation. Consciousness tilts reality, favoring certain inputs, discarding others. Trauma sharpens the tilt, memory reinforces it, choice extends it into the future. Each individual becomes a biased observer, and that bias is what keeps reality from annihilating into infinite noise. The present is not balance, but imbalance. It flows because memory leans backward and anticipation leans forward. Every now is stretched between asymmetries, like a tightrope pulled by past and future. If time were perfectly symmetric, there would be no flow, no becoming. Just as the universe needed disequilibrium to create matter, consciousness needs disequilibrium to create meaning. Leptogenesis suggests the universe's asymmetry may have started in ghost-like neutrinos. In MST, the inevitable self emerges from ghost-like potentials, possibilities invisible until choice crystallizes them. The self does not spring from balance, but from hidden asymmetries in potential. Just as neutrino imbalance seeded galaxies, perceptual imbalance seeds identity. In MST, becoming is not a march toward perfection. It is the dance of imbalance, the art of survival through imperfection. Trauma leaves asymmetry in memory. Choice leaves asymmetry in possibility. Time leaves asymmetry in experience. And through these asymmetries we grow, we become. The universe exists because one particle in a billion tipped the scale. You exist because one thought, one decision, one act of survival tipped yours. The cosmic and the personal mirror each other. Against annihilation, asymmetry persists. The study of baryon asymmetry is ongoing. Neutrino observatories, particle accelerators, and cosmological surveys continue probing why matter survived. Yet the lesson already shines clear. Existence is not the result of balance but of imbalance. In spirituality, perfection is often imagined as divine, but if perfection means symmetry, then perfection is annihilation. True divinity then lies not in flawless balance, but in the creative spark of imbalance, the asymmetry that keeps the fire of becoming alive. Mystics have long intuited this. The Taoist yin-yang is not perfect halves, but a dynamic tension. The Gnostic spark survives within the world of matter precisely because of imbalance. In mental health, symmetry often collapses into pathology. Obsessive attempts to balance every thought or control every outcome lead to paralysis. Healing requires embracing the asymmetry of being, the uneven terrain of memory, emotion, and perception. Resilience itself is asymmetry, the refusal of trauma to annihilate you, the 1 in a billion survival of your spirit. The baryon asymmetry problem is not just a question for cosmology, it is a parable of the human condition. The multiverse of self teaches that perception is biased, and that bias is the reason for individuality. Time is imbalanced, and that disequilibrium is the reason for becoming. Self is inevitable because hidden asymmetries always resolve into identity. Just as physics looks to neutrinos and CP violation, MST looks to perception, trauma, and choice. Both reveal the same truth. Perfection is annihilation. Asymmetry is survival. You are the universe's asymmetry made flesh. When you feel broken, remember, so is the cosmos. When you feel imperfect, remember, without imperfection, there would be nothing. When you wonder why you exist at all, remember, existence itself is an asymmetry, a fragile miracle against overwhelming odds. The cosmos survived because one particle in a billion did not annihilate. You survive because one perception, one decision, one act of becoming tipped your scale. That is the asymmetry of existence. That is the multiverse of self. Thank you for today, thank you for yesterday, thank you for tomorrow. Always remember to question your reality, and at every end there is a beginning. Thanks for watching. Till next time.